This is our video on the bilingual brain by Hannah Giverts, Josh Green, and Leslie Chan. Man, Josh, these comprehension questions for this Pablo Neruda poem are really hard.
Actually, I'm finding them pretty easy right now. The questions are pretty straightforward, and they go well with the poem.
Well, maybe that's my problem. If I could understand the poem, maybe I could understand the questions.
Well, it actually comes pretty easy for me, because Spanish is my second language.
Oh, man, you're so lucky. I wish my brain worked that way.
I can explain that.
Bilinguals are individuals who are highly proficient in two languages. Multilinguals are highly proficient in two or more languages. There are approximately 6,800 distinct languages in the modern world, and approximately 2/3 of the population is bilingual or multilingual. The areas affected or changed or different in a bilingual brain are the inferior parietal cortex, Broca's area, and Wernicke's area, or the speech pathway, as well as the hippocampus. It has also been known for a long time that the language cortex develops when we are very young, beginning in infancy, then pretty much locking in place by the time we are 4 years old. This is the window of development for language. For children who are raised without exposure to language by age 4, they will never acquire normal fluency. If you normally developed a primary language and then learn a second language which is stored in a different area, a Broca's area, after age 4, the second language will use more brain resources. It won't have the same language cortex encoding that the primary language does. Wernicke's area is the brain's dictionary. It translates words into concepts and concepts into words. When you are trying to think of a specific word for something, that process is taking place in Wernicke's area. There is also a specialized cortex that processes auditory information, translating sounds into words, and feeding that information to Wernicke's area. In the frontal lobe, there is Broca's area that converts words into speech. Essentially, this is specialized motor cortex that allows for the exquisite control of muscles of speech necessary to produce the subtle sounds of speech. Wernicke's area and Broca's area are connected to create the speech pathway. Long-term and short-term memory are held in the hippocampus. The transfer of information from short-term to long-term memory is enhanced by rehearsal. Thus comes the phrase, practice makes perfect. So, when someone has to learn two languages when they're younger, or has to acquire a new language during a time of great pruning or growth in the brain, these pathways become stronger than someone who has only had to learn one language.
Through research using voxel-based morphometry, or VBM, scientists have been able to investigate structural plasticity in the brains of bilinguals and monolinguals. Through their research, they have gathered evidence supporting the idea that the density of gray matter is higher in the left inferior parietal cortex of bilinguals relative to monolinguals. Their research also shows that the more proficient they are in the second language, and the earlier they acquire the second language, the more dense their gray matter is. This suggests that the structure of the human brain is altered by the experience of learning a second language.
Now that we know more about the bilingual brain, let's see how current studies tackle the problem. In this one study, in the picture you see here, the scientists were trying to figure out where in the brain was activity present when the bilingual participants were speaking. When the participants were identifying words in English or their native language, which would be German, Japanese, or French, the same areas in the brain would activate. This is a point of interest since we now know or have evidence to support that language in any form, whether it be English or your other language, all draws from the same areas of the brain. If you were trying to get the meaning for the word, let's say salmon, whether it be English, French, German, or Japanese, you would draw from the same area of your brain. Now that we're done with that, let's take a look at a more interesting study. This was a study done on bilingual and non-bilingual babies of 7 months of age. These babies were asked, as you see in the picture, to identify something with their eyes. If they noticed it, they would look at that area. Both babies, monolingual and bilingual, would both look at the same area and continue looking at that area as it was a reward. In one area there was nothing, in one area there was. Soon, the scientists switched the area where they were supposed to look, in which, like, a toy, for example, would be in another area, let's say to the right instead of the left. The bilingual babies were able to adapt and switch this new stimuli and focus their eyes on the second image, whereas the monolingual were not able to keep up and kept their eyes on the same place. This shows that there is cognitive improvement for bilingual babies as they were able to adapt.